Hey there friends, spring is officially in full gear now and the garden is packed. Sweet potato slips are shooting up, tomatoes and peppers have made huge progress, and the peas are ready to harvest for salads. I've discovered the secret to healthier seedlings, watched carrots burst through the soil, and even learned an important lesson about garlic planting. Plus, we've got kale, spinach, and mustard greens teaching us some valuable lessons about bolting and timing. This week is packed with practical gardening tips and a few unexpected twists, so let's dig in. Sweet potatoes. This has been a pretty good week for sweet potato slips, though I'll be honest, they're moving a bit slower than I expected. I'm hoping by next week we'll have some in water and ready to root. What surprised me is that only 2 of my sweet potatoes are really producing slips. If you're hoping to get some from me, I'm not ruling it out, but they may take a lot longer than planned. Here's a quick quiz. Of these 2 leaves, which one do you think is the classic orange sweet potato? If you guess the purple ones, you're wrong. The darker purple leaves are actually the orange variety, while the greener leaves are the purple variety. Before we jump into tomatoes, I have a quick favor to ask. Did you know that liking this video is the simplest, the fastest, and totally free way that you can help creators like me? Think of it like holding the door for someone. It's quick, easy, and makes a big difference. If you're the kind of person who would hold the door open for me, please take a second to hit that like button. It helps my channel reach more gardeners just like us. Tomatoes. The tomatoes are looking strong and maybe the best they've looked all season. Last time, they were just okay, not terrible, but nothing to brag about. And now, I'm definitely proud of these little teenagers. If your tomato seeds are struggling, the best fix is to move them. Give them more space, a bigger pot, or if the temps are right, get them outside. This goes for almost any seedling. This round of potting up, I used a mix of 2 parts organic store-bought potting mix, 1 part compost cow manure, and a tablespoon of 772 fish fertilizer. The forecast is finally working in our favor. Nighttime temps here in Massachusetts are now hanging in the upper 40s and low 50s. That's great news for us here in New England. If the trend holds, I'll be putting these tomatoes in the ground next week. Peppers. Peppers are always a little bit slower, and mine are no exception. They're not quite where I want them yet, not picture perfect, but they're moving in the right direction. They got the same soil mix as the tomatoes, but I did something different with planting. You'll notice some cells have 2 peppers growing together. That's usually not recommended, but I've got a reason. Last year, I saved seed from a mix of pepper varieties that I grew together. That means each of these plants, seeds, could produce totally different types of peppers, which is awesome. Planting 2 at a time increases the chance that I get something cool and productive, increases diversity within my fruits. And from experience, I can tell you that 2 pepper plants growing close together will get the same or just as large as a solo pepper plant. These are going adjacent to the garlic that I have in a bed right here. And by midsummer, we'll have a full hedge of peppers growing here. Some might get as tall as me, which is not very tall. Potatoes. These potatoes are on fire this season. It feels like they're doubling in size every couple of days. I've got first early red potatoes planted here, second early gold potatoes planted here, and just over there I've got russet potatoes. I'm doing a spacing experiment this year. My red potatoes, as you can see, are spaced further apart, while the gold potatoes are tightly packed together. And here's what I'm thinking. I expect I'll get bigger total yield by weight from the tightly spaced potatoes, even though each potato will probably be smaller. On the other hand, the potatoes spaced further apart will produce fewer potatoes overall and by weight, but each one should be larger. And we'll find out together in just a couple of weeks. And just this week, I planted my main crop, russet potatoes. And for these, I chose a wider spacing because larger potatoes tend to store longer. And I'm hoping to keep these potatoes well into the winter. Gardening is always about experimenting. And we'll see how all of this turns out. Right, you can watch it here with me. Each bed of potatoes will be getting 772 fish fertilizer to boost it through the rest of the month. Seedlings. Every year, my seedlings make it, but honestly, they rarely look amazing. Well, this year, I finally figured out my big mistake. I've never really fed my seedlings. I've always just relied on whatever fertilizer came within the potting mix, and that was not a great plan. Lesson learned. So now, I'm changing things up. Every week, I'm giving my seedlings a gentle feeding with a diluted organic liquid fertilizer. I found this seaweed fertilizer at my local garden store, and I mix about 1 tablespoon per gallon of water. It's simple, organic, and the results are already obvious. The seedlings are growing faster with healthier, brighter leaves all around. This year, I'm growing 2 kinds of cucumbers, a salad variety from seeds I saved last season, and a classic Boston pickling variety. Both of them sprouted fast and are looking great. I might need to move them up to bigger 4-inch nursery pots soon, but that'll depend on how quickly I can harvest my bok choy and spinach. Speaking of bok choy, these plants have been regulars in my weekly update because they're one of the first things that we got growing in early spring. I started them back in March, and they'll be ready to harvest within the next 2 weeks. It's perfect timing since cucumbers will be going into this bed next. It is the beginning of the month, so for all of my established plants, it's time for another round of feeding. I'm going to be giving all of my plants, all my leafy green plants, a dose of blood meal for nitrogen. Now, I've heard some gardeners say that cucumbers and tomatoes don't grow well together. Personally, I'm a little skeptical about that, but I might play it safe. Since I've got marigolds ready, I'll probably plant a row of those flowers between my cucumbers and tomatoes as a buffer zone. Better safe than sorry, and it makes the garden look great. Spinach has been a superstar this season, popping up all over the garden, but the particular bed is moving ahead faster and starting to flower, which means the leaves won't taste as good anymore. So today, I'm going to be pulling these plants out to make room for my tomatoes. I'm also going to be adding about 2 inches of compost and my amendments. Specifically for tomatoes, you don't want to add too much nitrogen, otherwise you'll get a giant, beautiful plant with dark green leaves with no fruit on them. And that's not why we grow tomatoes. So I'll be adding a lot of fish bone meal, which breaks down slowly and adds a lot of phosphorus and potassium into the soil. I'll also be adding azomite and green sand, which take care of a lot of the micronutrients. And lastly, I'll be adding a rock dust to add supple amounts of calcium and prevent root blossom end rot on the tomatoes. Some of the spinach plants have already started bolting and started to flower, while others are just beginning. Either way, I've gotten a ton of delicious spinach from this spot, and I'm excited for the next crop that'll grow here. And it'll be here soon. It's always satisfying to rotate beds and keep harvesting new veggies. Because of all my spinach plants are nearing the end of their life cycle, I won't be fertilizing these anymore. Here we have red Russian kale. Like the spinach, the red Russian kale is in full bloom. At first, I was going to cut these down, but I've changed my mind. This kale turned out to be a huge hit at my house. We love it. Raw, it's delicate, it's perfect. We like to pick the leaves young and small for salads, which means I plant seeds really close together. And that means I use a lot more seeds than a typical kale plant. The good news is this variety is an heirloom, so it's safe and easy to save seeds from. I'm letting this entire bed flower so that there's a ample diversity in genetics, right? So this particular flower may pollinate with the plant way down there, but I don't need hundreds of thousands of seeds. I only need a handful. So what I'll be doing is once this completes its pollination cycle and starts producing seed, I'll be able to cut maybe 2 of these rows back and only keep the back row for actual seed saving. Because these plants will need a good bit of energy to make seeds properly, I will be applying fish fertilizer to this bed, and that is 772 fertilizer that I mention in these videos regularly. One important thing to watch out for though, when doing something like this is cross-pollination. Red Russian kale can cross-pollinate with other flowering brassicas, including the traditional kale that I've planted right behind me. If you've enjoyed these updates and picking up tips for your own garden, now's a great time to hit that like button and subscribe. It's quick and free and helps this channel grow more than you think. Plus, it lets me know that you want more week-by-week content just like this. Thanks for being here. Let's get back into the video. Kale. My overwintered traditional kale has been desperate to flower lately, and I've tried clipping the flowers, buds to keep them leafy, but these plants really just want to bloom, and I can't keep up. I'm noticing fewer leaves every day with more and more buds. It's like the Hydra. I cut one off and two come in its place. So I've decided it's time to cut these kale plants down. This serves two purposes. First, it gives me room for the new kale seedlings, and second, it prevents unwanted cross-pollination with my red Russian kale. It's tough to see these go, but it is for the best. Carrots. Carrots have really taken off. Almost all of the seedlings germinated nicely, and I've already done first rounds of thinning. Right now, they're spaced at about an inch apart, and I'll let them grow like this for a few weeks. Then I'll do a second thinning once the carrots reach about pinky sized. That way, the small carrots I pull will be perfect for salads, and it'll create enough space for the remaining carrots to mature and grow into full-sized carrots. This is a great way to maximize your harvest while still getting delicious snacks along the way. I highly recommend trying this method if you're growing carrots. I'm applying a strip of blood meal to these carrot rows, and I'm using blood meal instead of fish fertilizer because these carrots will still need a good amount of nitrogen in the coming weeks as they build and grow a strong leafy base. And that's going to happen before they start really bulking up their roots, which I will switch over to fish bone meal or fish fertilizer throughout that part. But there is also fish bone meal that I amended this bed with a couple of weeks back. Cabbage. A couple of cabbage seedlings fell victim to pests already, but that's exactly why having backup plants is important. Thankfully, I had some ready to step in and they're looking fantastic. These replacement plants seem extra vigorous, and I'm excited to see how they develop over the next few weeks. An interesting lesson is I started cabbage seeds in both 16-cell trays and larger 6-cell trays this year. The seedlings from the 6-cell tray were clearly healthier and grew faster. From now on, I'll be sticking with larger 6-cell trays when starting cabbage indoors. It's a small adjustment, but it makes a huge difference early on. These plants will be getting blood meal because they are a leafy crop and will need a lot of nitrogen as they expand. Even throughout the harvest, you harvest a big leafy mass. That's what cabbage is. So it will never need large amounts of phosphorus. Right next to the cabbage, we have kohlrabi and beets. I've got a few beets in a couple of different places around the garden, and these here are the classic round variety. I planted these in clumps. Both the beets and the kohlrabi have been growing slowly but steadily, which honestly suits me just fine. I'm in no rush or hurry with these crops. They can take their time because I'm not planning to put anything in here. Gardening isn't always about speed. Often slower growth means healthier plants and better flavors, and I'm happy to let these develop naturally at their own pace. That's not to say they're not doing well. I mean, that's a healthy kohlrabi, and the beet's doing good too. Celery and leek. I lost a few celery plants to an unknown pest, which was frustrating. To fight back, I sprinkled diatomaceous earth around the seedlings. That seemed to do the trick because the damage has stopped, at least until the rain washed the DE away. Now that things have calmed down, I have a few empty spaces. I'll probably plant something else in these empty spots. Here, for example, maybe basil. And who doesn't like fresh basil in summer, right? It's always good to have a backup plan and keep every inch of garden space productive. And I find that how big your garden is, you're gonna fill it up. Celery, leeks, kohlrabi, and beets will all be getting blood meal this month. Spring garlic. I've got to be honest here. The spring planted garlic looks pretty unimpressive. I'm genuinely grateful that my fall planted garlic did so well and is doing so well, because these spring planted cloves are struggling. It might be because spring garlic just doesn't perform as well, or it might be because these particular cloves, which I bought from an Etsy supplier, were small to begin with. Either way, when July rolls around, I'll harvest these and select the biggest cloves to plant again next year. Over time, this should lead to larger garlic cloves, but one thing's for sure, I won't plant garlic in spring ever again. Fall planted garlic, especially in October, is clearly superior. Bigger, stronger, and all around better. These will be getting 772 fish fertilizer because phosphorus and potassium will be important building blocks for the garlic bulbs as they mature. My storage onions are doing great. They're finally growing large enough that I can spot them easily from a distance, which is always satisfying. The only real challenge in this bed has been weeding. I've done a fair amount of manual weeding to keep things under control. Here's a quick gardening tip. Tackle weeds while they're small, ideally when they have just 1 or 2 pairs of true leaves. It's much easier and quicker than waiting until they're large. Early weed control keeps your plants happy and your garden tidy, so don't put it off. A little bit here and there is all you need. Just like garlic, these will be getting a fish fertilizer instead of straight blood meal, because they need phosphorus to have their mature bulbs. Flowers. My wife and I are growing a few flower varieties this year. She picked some, and I've got some marigolds and cannabis plants. I've learned a couple lessons already. Take a look at these marigolds. The ones still stuck in the 6-cell trays have really slowed down, but the one I transplanted, it's thriving. That's a clear sign. When they're ready, move them. I'll be planting the marigolds between tomatoes and the cucumbers soon to help with pest control, and they look nice. Now, not every plant does well, and sometimes it's not your fault. Check out this cannabis seedling. It came from older seed and just never took off. When I realized it probably wouldn't recover, I sowed a few backups. Out of 12 seeds, only 1 sprouted. This final attempt for cannabis plants will go in the corner bed just to my right, where I planted the mustard greens. Speaking of mustard green, remember last week we talked about allelopathy? That's when certain plants actually suppress the other plants around them. Mustard greens are one of those plants. I pulled these out of the fava bean bed to give my favas a fighting chance. But look at them now. They're still hanging in there. Some of them were overwintered, and others are volunteer seedlings that popped up this spring. The ones that are starting to flower, those are the overwintered plants. The newer spring seedlings will get much bigger, but I'll probably cut them back before they get so large. I don't need them competing with the other summer crops that will go there. The peas are looking good, strong and healthy. I'm at the point now where I need to start thinking seriously about building some sort of supports. Peas love to climb, and they'll grow taller and healthier if they have something sturdy to hold on to. But even right now, these pea shoots are ready for harvest. They're fantastic in salads. Fresh pea shoots have a bright, crunchy sweetness that's hard to beat, so don't miss out on your growing pea season this year. Another thing that I wanted to mention here is volunteer potatoes. Growing in between my onions. Now, I love volunteer plants, but once this starts growing, it's going to compete with my onions, and I really want onions. So, like you can see here, I'm going to just keep pinching them back, and eventually the poor potato will rot in the ground and not have the energy to continue on. It's kind of brutal, fatalist to say it that way, but it is what it is. The fava beans started slowly this season, and for a while they looked pretty sad with some yellowing leaves. But they've completely turned around. Removing those mustard greens from this bed made a huge difference. The fava beans are bouncing back with vibrant, healthy green growth. And they've even started to flower. As these beans grow taller, I'll stake each corner of this bed and wrap twine around it that'll keep the plants from spilling out onto the garden paths. This simple support system keeps the garden neat, organized, and easy to work in. Sometimes the easiest solutions are the best. Peas and fava beans are nitrogen fixers, but because of the yellowing of the fava leaves and the slow growth, I'm going to be adding a bit of blood meal to the fava beans only. Thanks for watching this week's update. If you've found this video helpful or just enjoyed it, please take a second to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know that you want more videos just like this one.